The Most High gave us a commandment. And those of you that are Hebraic in thought and are trying to walk in the precepts, the concept, we're going to talk about those today. What is this? What are we? What are we? What are we? What are we? We are a Hebraic learning institute. We're not church. Our job here is to teach. That's what we're supposed to do, is teach. We're not supposed to preach. Huckabub. We're not here to use the platform of the Most High to expound on our political ideologies and thoughts. It's not what we're here for. We're not here to promote any agenda except the agenda that's associated with the Most High. So on the 16th day of this month is the Day of Atonement. It's the day when Israel comes before the Most High and is judged. It's a day, well, let's just read it. Yahweh said to Moshe, the 10th day of the 7th month is Yom Kippur. You are to have a holy convocation. That means that we are supposed to convene. We're supposed to come together as a group of people. You cannot have a holy convocation by yourself in your house. You cannot have a holy convocation by yourself in your house. Oh, I know how to talk correctly. But your house. You are to deny yourself. So that means that from sunup on the 16th, well, actually, sunup on the 15th, sunup on the 15th until sundown on the 16th is a day of complete fasting. Deny yourself. You are to bring an offering made by fire to Yahweh. If we were in the land, that would mean that from the herds, from the flock, we would bring an offering and we would present that offering to the Kohanim, who would present that offering before the Most High. We're not in the land, so the offerings that we bring are offerings that come out of our pocket. You are not to do any kind of work on that day because it is Yom Kippur to make atonement for you before Yahweh, your Eloheka. The word God in Hebrew is Eloheka. Could be Eloheka, could be Elohim. When it's written in this context, then what follows is Eloheka. Anyone who does not deny himself on that day is to be cut off from his people. That means that if we were in the land, you would cease to exist. So, will you do a church thing for me? I'm going to ask you to do a church thing for me. Would you just shout out, "Thank you, Yahweh, for grace and mercy"? Come on. Thank you, Yahweh, for grace and mercy. Because our existence to this day is because of his grace and mercy. Without grace and mercy, we would have never come and been alive to be able to express and teach the things that are so important to us in relationship to the Father's Word. We didn't keep the Sabbath. We were over there in Greco-Roman theology called Christianity that told us that the covenant, the covenant, the covenant, the covenant that the Most High gave to his people had been done away with. When has the Most High changed his mind? In the book of Numbers, he tells us, "I am not humankind. I'm not human, that I should lie or change my mind. Whatever I have said, I will bring it into fruition. I'll bring it to pass." So, what are we doing in this exile? We're doing something that Allen Iverson hollered at his coach when he showed up late for a game after one of his very close friends had died and the coach didn't know it. And he fussed at him because he missed practice. And Allen Iverson said, "We talking about practice? You talking about practice?" Well, Hebrew Israel and the alien and the foreigner that is with us, yeah, we're talking about practice. We're talking about practice. I want you to think about something, and I've said this to you before. I want you to think about if you believe that there is a hereafter, and if you do believe in a resurrection or a revivification from the dust, and if you don't believe in that, then I don't know why you're here. I don't know why you're here. I don't even know why you go to church. Because most people go to church because they are scared of hell. They want to go to heaven. But in any of those two narratives, going to hell, going to heaven, wherever you're going, that you think you're going to live forever because you're doing what God wants you to do, you want to obey, then we have to look at what our Father who created us asked us to do. And he asked us during a certain part of the year to give him the honor and give him the respect of holding convocations to remember. The Feast of Trumpets was the beginning of remembering and soul searching. But the Day of Atonement is serious. It's serious because it's introflexion and intro looking into ourselves to see if we have been obedient in the course of the year and worthy enough to be written into the book of life. I talk about this every year. Daniel, the book of Daniel says, he says, I looked and I saw one that was sitting on the throne, and the books were open. And the one who was sitting on the throne was pronouncing judgment. Was he judging? Who's going in the books? Those who are righteous, those who are wicked, those who are undecided. They're books, not a book, but books. So, if you have been following and have been a participant, because you can't be a member of First Tabernacle Fellowship. First Tabernacle Fellowship does not have membership. You can't join us. You can join with Israel. You can join with the family of Israel that belongs to the Most High, but you can't join First Tabernacle Fellowship. It's not a club. So if you have joined with the theology of Hebrew Israel, then the Most High expects you to obey. Now here's the dealy bob. If we were in the land and you didn't show up for Feast of Trumpets, and you didn't show up for Day of Atonement, it's over. It would be over. How over? Rabbi, how over would it be? Well, we're looking forward to the next phase of the Most High's days, because the Most High has 8 days within his calendar. We happen to be living in the 6th day, which is a day of grace and mercy. We're looking forward to the Messianic era, which is the 7th day, when we will live in the land with him. I think it's one of the Mitzvahs today. In the land with him, and guess what? Guess what him ain't gonna do? Bernie Mac comes to mind. Him ain't gonna give us no milk and cookies. If you don't obey, you will just simply be, as he said, cut off. Cut off is not a term that a farmer would use to separate his herd. Well, I'm separating the herd. I'm putting the herd over. I'm cutting off part of the herd. No, that's not what the Most High means when he says cut off. When he says cut off, he says you just no longer exist. How do I know this? Because I study scripture. There's an interesting dialogue in Zechariah that after he fulfills his promise to bring Israel and the nations that are friendly to him back to the land, which is going to be a humongous population of people. And we will reign in the land with him. A day is what? What's the day with the Most High? 1,000 years is a day, and a day is 1,000 years with the Most High. And the Most High in that seventh day is going to be 7 millenniums. So that's 7,000 years. That makes up the millennium of the age that we will be in the land with the Most High. And during that period of time, these mitzvahs that I'm teaching are going to be in play to the nth degree. And anybody who misses them, messes up on them, and we're the ones that at least give you the opportunity to repent and teshuvah play versus those that don't. The ones that don't are the ones that are going to whittle the population that goes into the 8th and final eternal day with the Most High down to 1/3. How do you think he's going to get down to 1/3? How do you think he's going to get down to 1/3? Can you say disobedience? Somebody got a bug up their nose and said, well, I'm not going to Yom Teruah. I'm not going to Feast of Trumpets today. And I got stuff to do. And so somebody says, you know what? Oh, he says, and so you want to treat what I said, what I've asked you to do as lightly. People just disappear. They just disappear. Go away. Never to return again. So you think that these mitzvot that I'm teaching you are insignificant? And you want to listen to the people across the street that told you that they've been done away with? I tell you what you do. Let's see how that works out for you in the end. I am positively certain that everything in the history book that the Most High has done to his people to this day is true, accurate, and can be proven by a volume of witnesses. If you don't think that judgment is in the land, and you think that what's going on, oh, these are just acts of natural acts of whatever. I mean, you know, the hurricanes are an act of God. They're just, and the floods, they're just an act of God. And the fires, they're just an act of God. And this global pandemic that has affected the world, oh, it's just, you know, it's just another disease that's come up on us. It'll go away. Bad news for you. It's called judgment. 700,000 people in the United States, roughly, not including the number of people that are dying in the world, is not a fluke. It's not a fluke. It's called judgment. People dying in hurricanes and floods, because you see, what you don't understand is the Father has an army, and his army doesn't come with missiles, airplanes, and guns and bullets. He don't use that. He don't use that. He uses plagues. He uses disease. He uses the elements that are at his fingertips that he commands and says, go. And the interesting thing about the heavens and the forces, they obey his command. When he says go, they go. When he says rescind, come back, they come back. So if we, who he has created, think that we are smarter than he is, I'm going to call you something that you're not going to like. You are a fool. Can't put it any other way. So, the 16th day of this 9th month will be the Day of Atonement. You will begin your fast on the morning of the 15th through the 16th. We will hold a holy convocation in the evening, beginning at 6 o'clock, where we will break that fast. And we break that fast. We've done what the Most High has asked us to do. Once again, your name will be written in the book of life. Let me share something else with you before I go to the Mitzvahs. Have you ever noticed that between the fall and the spring of the year, the number of people that die? You ever pay attention to that? Watch your calendar, watch the news, and watch life. Outside of the pandemic, in the fall of the year, into the spring, there are a large number of people that die. And that's because the Most High has judged, and he has determined those that are righteous enough to take into the grave to sleep, and those that are wicked that just will never see the light of day again. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to allow you to understand that obedience to the Most High's word is critical to your existence. And these mitzvahs that I'm teaching you, while today a lot of them are not going to apply to you, but yet and still they're interlinked together as part of a whole. When we get in the land, all of these are going to be in play. What don't we have in this exile? What don't we have in this exile? What don't we have? Come on, what don't we have? We don't have a temple. We don't have a Kohanim, and we don't have a king. But let me retract that and back it up a little bit. What's the job of a Kohanim? What's the job of a Kohanim? Tell me, John. Sean, what's the job of a short Kohanim? What's he do? Huh? He's the aid, he helps. What is it? What's his principal responsibility, John? What is it? To minister the Most High and teach. His job is to teach. My father said it, poor dog that won't wag his own tail. I didn't call me to this. I thought I did. I thought I did. Till I realized I didn't call me to this. So my job as a rabbi and a Kohanim is to teach Torah. So in this exile, we do have Kohanim whose responsibility is to teach Torah. That's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to stand up here and holler and rabble about the political agenda of the world. Hey. This ain't our nation. This is not our nation. Boy, we got a nation. We got a nation. And our nation is in diaspora all across the four corners of this world, just like the Most High said. And one day, he's going to gather the nation all back together again. And it's going to be glorious. We're going to have a king. We're going to have Kohanim. We're going to have a temple. Hey, guess what? Billionaires can't buy what you're going to have when we get back in the land. They can't buy it. Can't buy it. All the money in the world cannot buy what the Most High has promised to his people when he brings them back to the land. Ain't that something? I don't even think there's going to be any bling bling. I mean, there's going to be some. The Most High's got jewels. He's got all this stuff that belonged to him that he's going to pour upon Israel, but ain't going to be no bling bling. Ain't going to be no gold chains with no cross hanging on it. 24 karat gold cross hanging on it. Ain't going to be that. Ain't going to be none of that. Songwriter said, believe I'll run on, see what the end's gonna be. Believe I'll run on. Well, I believe I'm just gonna hold out because, my golly, I want to witness. I want to witness what the Most High has written in Scripture that He's going to do when He brings Israel from all the four corners of the world and the nations that join with Him back to the land. Okay. Day of Atonement, 16th day of the 9th month on the Gregorian calendar. We will be here at 6 o'clock. And if you are a believer and you believe in what you say you believe, then pandemic, COVID, or whatever, you'll be here. We are a learning institute, so I have to repeat certain things. And one of the things that we learned in school was repetition. I don't care if you take an algebra class, a geometry class, adding, subtracting, division is all going to be a part of the narrative because it's a formula that has to do with math. So it gets repeated. So while it is that you've seen this before, we're going to start it here again. Definitions and synonyms associated with Psalms 119, Tehillim. I believe that King David wrote this particular Psalms, and in it, the 22 consonants of the Hebrew letters exist. And in all of the 22 stanzas, these words appear somewhere in the stanza. Precepts. What are they? They're teachings, rulings, instructions, laws, dictums, and commandments. A general rule intended to regulate behavior or thought. Well, what do the mitzvot provide for us, and what has the Most High said to Israel? The nations will see you, and they will say to you, what a wise people you are, who have an Elohim or an Eloheka that's so close to you, that has given you such wonderful laws and commandments and precepts. Laws, commandments, regulations, rulings, directives, the system of rules, which a particular country or community recognizes as regulating the actions of its members, and which it may enforce by the imposition of penalties. Laws. The Most High has laws. Across the street, they say to us that our obeying these laws is legalism. So what you're telling me is that in your natural life, when you obey your father's laws that he has laid out for living in your house, you are a legalist. When the Father of fathers, who created all things and created you, gives us laws and we obey them, it's not legalism. Because when you obey your father that you live with in your house and you obey him because you love him. That's one. But also, you have a reverence for him. That's two. And three, you fear him. You fear him. Oh, no, you fear him. You have reverence and respect, but you also, if you have a good father, you also fear him. So you're telling me that when I obey the laws, the commandments, the regulations, the rulings, the directives of the Most High, that I am a legalist. Okay. Mitzvahs, a precept or commandment, rulings, verdicts, judgments, declarations, decrees, an authoritative decision or pronouncement, especially one made by a judge. Who is the judge of judges? Who judges? He said, don't judge me. You can't. Well, I'm not judging you because we got a judge. And he's the judge of judges. And he doesn't allow us to judge his people. He does it. And he does it effectively. And when he pronounces judgment and a sentence, it's final. And the whole idea of obedience is so that we don't fall into his hand of negative judgment. For it's a terrible thing to fall into the hands of an angry Yah. Just ask Israel. We're studying the book of Hosea right now. We've come through Lamentations. Boy, we've, woo, wow, oh. Mm. Mm. Can I tell you a little secret? I am so glad I'm not them. I am so glad that I am not my ancestors. You understand what I'm saying? Because our ancestors, because of their idolatry, whoa, some bad stuff. Devarim, which is Deuteronomy chapter 4, gives me the foundation for what it is I'm supposed to be doing. Moshe said, "Now Israel, listen to the," say it with me, "to the laws and rulings I am teaching you." What is he teaching them? Laws and rulings. Not teaching them their history, they're living their history. He's not teaching them about the golden calf that they built. They live that out. That's part of it. He's not teaching them about what Korach did. That's all part of their history. He's not teaching them about the battles and the wars they had to go through to get to somebody. That's all part of the history. He says, "Now Israel, listen to the laws and rulings I am teaching you in order to follow them so that you will do what? Live." The whole idea is to live. And recognize that this house is just a house. And when he talks about living, he's talking about your soul. That part that makes you. He's talking about that part that makes you, you. Your heart, your soul. Your soul is either going to be righteous or your soul is going to be wicked. Out of the abundance of the heart, things come out of our mouth, our actions, what we do, how we function, how we talk, how we live our life comes out of the heart. And when it comes out of the heart, it magnifies what the soul, the real you is. The real you is your soul, so that your soul will live. Then you will go and take possession of the land that Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, is giving you in order to obey the mitzvot of Yahweh, your Elohim, which I'm giving you. Do what? Do what? Do what? Across the street, they've added, they subtracted. Do not add to what I'm saying to you, and do not subtract from it. Who said that? Who said that? The one who has created all things has said that. The one who made you said that. The one who allows you to breathe said that. Not the other guy who got his breath from the sun. From the same one who gave you breath. Elohim that created all things said, do not add to what I am saying and do not subtract from it. Now here's the deal. And you've heard me say this. I really don't care what the nations do. I really don't. Because the Most High has written this to Hebrew Israel and the foreigner and the nations that join with them. This is written to us. This is written to you. This isn't written to Greece. This isn't written to Rome. This isn't written to Italy. This isn't written to any nation of people except Hebrew Israel and the foreigner that joins with Israel. So everybody else, you can go do whatever you want to do. I can't. So don't try to teach me your falsehoods. Don't try to teach me your fallacies. Don't try to tell me that if the Most High said he's going to do something, don't try to tell me he's not. That's what got Israel in trouble. They had false prophets prophesying, bold enough to prophesy against what the Most High said. And the Most High said, they're false prophets. And he called them whores. And you're leading my people into idolatry. Okay? And Israel suffered because of the false prophets of the Kohanim that were amongst them. They suffered. They suffered. They died. Oh man. Oh. When you read the history book of the nations and things that have happened to the nations and you compare it to what's happened to Hebrew Israel, there is no comparison to what the Most High has exacted on Hebrew Israel as compared to what he's exacted on the nation. There is absolutely no comparison. Look, what does he say? I have taught you what? Come on. Laws and rulings, just as who? Yahweh, my Elohim, ordered me to. So I've taught you what he ordered me to teach you. I'm not teaching you what the bishops told me to teach you. I'm not teaching you what the supervisors told me to teach you. I'm not teaching you what the pastors told me to teach you. I'm teaching you what the Elohim, what Yahweh, my Elohim, ordered me so that I can behave, so that you can behave accordingly in the land where you are going in order to take possession of it. Therefore, do what? Observe them and follow them. Oh no, just do away with them. You don't have to follow them. You don't have to follow these. The Most High said, observe them and follow them, for then all peoples will see you as having what? Wisdom and understanding. So now we know where wisdom and understanding comes from. Wisdom and understanding come from the laws and the rulings, the mitzvahs, the precepts, the instructions that the Most High is giving to us to live by. That's where wisdom and understanding come from. You're not smart enough to have wisdom and understanding on your own. Oh, that's a wise man. Wise in what? The ways of the world? The Most High supersedes the ways of the world because he not only gives us wisdom in the ability to understand the ways of the world, but he gives us understanding in how to understand him. There are too many sons and too many daughters who grew up and said, I never could understand my father. The Most High has done. He's ruled out. He says, "I am going to give you something, so you will never ever have to tell me you didn't understand what I said. I'll make it plain. I'm going to make it so plain that it's even nighy in your mouth that you are able to say it and recite it." That's the reason why King David says in these 119 Psalms, "I meditate upon them day and night. I think about them day and night. I meditate upon your laws, your precepts, and your rulings day and night." For then all peoples will see you as having wisdom and understanding. Look, when they hear, oh, listen, look at that, look at that. When they do what? When they hear what? Can you say all? Not some, but all these laws. They will say, "This great nation is surely a wise and understanding people." For what great nation is it that has Elohim as close to them as Yahweh, our Eloheka, is, whenever we call him? What great nation is there that has laws and rulings as just as this entire Torah which I am setting before you today? What nation? What? Come on. What nation? What nation? What nation? What? Come on, smart people. You educators. What nation? What nation has better laws and rulings than Hebrew Israel has? What nation? Who can compare to us? Boy, I'm so proud. I am so proud. I am proud. I am. That's the reason why sometimes people call me arrogant. Because I walk with my chest stuck out. Because I know who I am. I know whose I am. And I know what my daddy has promised me. You don't see rich kids walking around. They have a strut about them. They're arrogant. My daddy who made me owns, can you say it loud and be proud? He owns what? Everything. He owns stuff that you and I can't even get to. He owns everything in the heavens and everything in the earth. And they try to build rockets to get up to his stuff. But they can only get so high because his stuff supersedes their ability to get there. Oh, I'm already having too much fun. So, what a great nation. See, now watch this. See, I want you to be proud. When people talk to you, tell them that you belong to a great nation. It doesn't have a president that we have to elect every 4 years. It doesn't have a Senate or a Congress that has to agree with each other in order to pass legislation. We live in a monarchy. We have a monarch. We have a king. So here we go. We're at Psalms, the Helium 119, verse 13. We have the Samach. The Samach means support, as Yahweh supports all those who rely on him. Let's listen to what he says. "I hate double-minded people, but I love your Torah. You, I should have put this in red. You are my hiding place and shield. You are my hiding place and shield. I put my hope in your word. Here's the Samach. Support me and I will be saved. Always putting my attention on your... Who's speaking? David. What's he speaking to? He's speaking to the Most High. Who's he telling? He said, I pay attention to your laws. Why? You're my support. Why? You're my hiding place. You're my shield. Hey, class, do you feel protected? Do you feel protected? Do you feel supported? Remember this last week we talked about remembering. We don't get here if we don't have something to remember how the Most High has been our hiding place, our shield, and our support. He supports us. We're not shaky. We're not wibbly. We're not double-minded. For a double-minded man is unstable in the letter ayin. The letter ayin means eye. The reading of the Torah's teaching can relieve a person's intellectual and spiritual poverty. As we are learning that the discerning eye penetrates beneath the surface and it reveals the secrets of Torah. 119, 123, Psalms. My eyes fail from watching for your salvation and for the fulfillment of your righteous promise. Deal with your servant in accordance with your grace and teach me your laws. I am your servant. Give me understanding so that I can know instruction. Let me take this into my eye gate. Let me take this into my mind. Let this enter into the portals that that will begin to resonate in my soul. Because once it gets in my soul, then I know it. And once I know it, I can recall it and I can meditate on it. If it's outside the parameters of my eye gate to be able to see and I haven't taken it into my soul, it's just words. But he said there would be life to me. So it can't just be words. The pay. The pay means mouth, followed by the ayin eye. This is unique in that it teaches that we should not speak before we have studied and see the truth with our own eyes. Don't be so quick to open your mouth. If you're going to open your mouth, know something. So let's see what the psalmist says. Your instruction is a wonder. This is why I follow. Your words are a doorway that lets in light, giving understanding to the thoughtless. Oh, my mouth is wide open as I pant with longing for your mitzvahs. So, you think the mitzvahs aren't important? Every stanza mentions them in some concept. The tzaddik. The tzaddik is meaning righteous, follows the ayin and the pay to teach that one who guards his eye and mouth humbly submits his voice to the vision of Yahweh merits the title of righteous. That means everybody who has declared themselves righteous, it ain't necessarily so. They haven't committed their mouth. They haven't committed their eyes. They speak without thought. They act without the precepts of the understanding of what Torah really means to them. I'm going to say it. 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 I am going to say it. The reason why a lot of the congregants that were here a year and a half ago aren't here is because somebody couldn't watch their mouth. And somebody who thought they knew Torah didn't know Torah. Because if they would have watched their mouth and resonated with Torah, they would have followed the precepts of Torah and would not have allowed themselves to be one who sowed discord amongst the brethren. Oh, I'm going to say it. I'm going to hit it every time. Every time it comes up, I'm going to hit it. And the word says there are 6 things that the Most High, and 7 he just abhors. And that last one is it. So righteousness is predicated upon the 3 previous consonants within the 8 stanzas. You are righteous, Yahweh, and your rulings are upright. You have commanded your instructions in righteousness and great faithfulness. Your righteousness is eternal righteousness. Uh-oh. And your Torah is what? Truth matters. Truth matters. Your Torah is truth. The very thing that across the street they're trying to get me to say has been done away with, the Most High said it's truth. So I asked the question across the street, who told you that? Who told? So who? Come on now. Don't try to play the Most High on me. Yeah, boom, he spoke with thunder. So the Most High's teaching is truth. Where do you think we're going to get truth from except for the one who's true? Question. Why would the Most High, who is righteous, eternal righteous, and his teaching is truth, why would he have a nation that hates him after 400 years of silence, speaking to his prophet Malachi? Why would, after 400 years, the Most High, who is eternal and righteous, have a nation that hates him and that's liars, write a testament for him? Does that make any sense? Why would he have an anti-Elohim, Moshiach, Christ nation write a testament for him? Why would he have people who are liars write a testament for him? Why would he do that? You are eternally righteous. Why would an eternally righteous Elohim I hate touching this board. I'm not going to get lost though. I'm going to find my way back. To pay. Okay. Where to go? or the Tzaddik. There we go. So the Most High is eternal and he's righteous. So he didn't lie. Let's go on. The Kuf. The Kuf stands for sanctity. If I read the first 8 verses of the stanza in Hebrew, if I put it up in Hebrew, each one of these stanzas each one of these verses in this particular stanza starts with a Kuf. The psalmist introduces each verse beginning with this Kuf. So if we saw it Hebraically, this word wholeheartedly, the word in Hebrew would start with the letter Kuf, with the Hebrew letter Kuf. So wholeheartedly, I am calling on your answer and calling on you. Answer me, Yahweh. I will keep your laws. I'm calling on you. Save me, and I will observe your instruction. I rise before the dawn and I cry for help. Where do I put my hope? Where do I put my hope? I put my hope in your word. See, I don't want you to put your hope in what I say. My words don't mean a thing. Our hope is in the word that the Most High has said. That's the reason why I always ask the question, who said it? If you're going to talk to me about something out of the Most High's word that you think, I'm going to ask you, who said it? Did the Most High say it? Did Isaiah say it? Did Jeremiah say it? Did Hosea say it? Did Obadiah say it? Did Ezekiel say it? Did Joshua say it? Because if none of them said it, away with you. Get out of my face. The Resh. The Resh is indicative of wickedness. Look at my distress and rescue me, for I do not forget your Torah. Plead my cause and redeem me, keeping with your promise. Revive me. Salvation is far away from the wicked, because they don't seek your laws. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Did you hear that? Salvation is far away from the wicked because they don't seek your laws. Did you see that? So, across the street, you told me that the Most High's laws were done away with and I don't have to follow them. The Most High just called you wicked. Oops. Oops, there it is. He just called you wicked. Now, I've already told you that the Day of Atonement is a day in which names are going to be written in the book. And the names that are going to be written in 3 different books. One book is going to house the names of the righteous, and the other book is going to house the names of the wicked. That's where your name is going. Because he has defined anybody who does not obey his laws and follow his laws. He said they were wicked. The main thing about your word is that it is true and just, and your just rulings, they last for how long? They last forever. Can I ask a question? How long is forever? Come on. How long is forever? Is forever like permanent? So you're going to tell me that what the Most High said lasts forever has now been done away with. That's what they teach in Christian theology. That's the only reason why they open their mouth and say what they say, because they learned that in the seminaries. I've been calling them cemeteries for so long, because that's what they're designed for. They're designed for death. When we're outside the parameters of the Most High's teaching, we're in the realm of death, being cut off. The shin. The shin represents falsehood. It teaches us that falsehood and evil do not last. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I hate falsehood. I detest it. But I love your Torah. I praise you 7 times a day because of your righteous rulings. Those who love your Torah, those who love your Torah have what? Say it loud and be proud. Come on. What do you have? Great peace. Nothing makes them stumble. Do you have peace? Do y'all have peace? Are you worried about anything? What? I get in my car and my truck every day and I leave my house knowing farewell, I'm coming back home unless I get hit by something. I'm not scared. I ain't scared of the popo. I ain't scared he's going to pull me over and we're going to have an outcast and then I'm going to go, well, he was reaching for his gun and I ain't got no gun. I'm not worried about that because I love his Torah and I have great peace. Nothing can make me stumble. The Tav, the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, represents desire. Our ultimate desire should be for truth. If we can find truth, we will find the path that leads to the Most High. So you want to be close to him, do you? Oh, I want to get so close to I just want to get close to God. Well, you're not going to get him on the street that you're on. You're gonna have to change. You're gonna have to change it. You have to change the street and get to the avenue where Torah is. Let my cry come before you, Yahweh, in keeping with your word. Give me understanding. Let my prayer come before you in keeping with your promise. Do what? Rescue me. That's the 119th Psalm. We've come all the way through it. And in every one of those stanzas, something in them speaks about what? Torah. (171). Let my lips speak praise, because you teach me your laws. Let my tongue sing of your promise, because all your mitzvot are righteous. Let your hand be ready to help me, because I choose your precepts. Remember I gave you the definition of precepts? I long for your deliverance, Yahweh, and your Torah is my delight. Let me live and I will praise you. Let your rulings help me. I strayed like a lost sheep. Seek out your servant, for I do not forget your mitzvot. How about that? How about that? Is anything that I've shared with you out of the 119 Psalms talk about anything about the history of Israel and their failings? Every word that's in the 119 Psalms talks about one thing: Torah, mitzvahs, precepts, statutes, rulings, instructions. And these rulings, precepts, and instructions, guess what they do for us? They make us happy. They make us happy. They may not make the nations happy, but that's okay. That wasn't for them. Before I go here, it's like this. You make something for somebody, right? And I show up and I get it. What do you say? And you get kind of arrogant about it too, don't you? I didn't make that for you. These mitzvahs ain't for nobody but Hebrew Israel and the nations that join with Israel. Let's go. Mitzvah number 333, Bamidbar, in the wilderness, 36. Verse 9, chapter 9, verse 1, the obligation to observe Pesach. Yahweh spoke to Moses in the Sinai on the first month of the second year after they had left the land of Mitzrayim. He said, let the people of Israel observe Pesach at its designated time. Pesach is Passover, not Easter. On the 14th day of this month at dusk, you are to observe it. It at its designated time. You are to observe it according to all the rules, according to all its regulations and rules. So when we get ready to teach this over again, we'll mention it, and we'll mention all the regulations and rules that go with it. But he says, let Israel do what? Observe Pesach. Not Easter. Easter is wicked. It's wicked. It's idolatry. And he hates it. And I don't know if you read about the Most High in idolatry, how much he hates it. Wow. Whew. Whoa. Man, he hates it. This is to be observed in exile. In this exile, every year, at the time designated, we celebrate Passover. And we celebrate the Feast of Matzah. That's also a part of Passover. Mitzvah 337, Bamidbar chapter 9, 10, and 11, the obligation to keep Pesach in the 7th month on the 14th day. Now, this particular commandment here is a commandment that is given to Israel for those who miss Pesach on its designated time. So if you happen to be unclean when Pesach arrives and you can't celebrate it, you can't take it, or you happen to be somewhere else and you can't take it, then he's giving you this ruling here that you are to observe Pesach in the 2nd month. Let's read. Tell the people of Israel, if any of you now or in the future generation is unclean because of a corpse, or if he is on a trip abroad, nevertheless he is to observe Pesach. But he will observe it in the 2nd month on the 14th day at dusk. They will eat it with matzah and marrow, and they are to leave none of it until morning, and they are not to break any of its bones. They are to observe it according to the regulations of Pesach. There it is. We go back into the rulings of that, then we'll see what all that is. With the Ashkenazis, because the Ashkenazis have stated that there are 613 mitzvahs. Well, I beg to differ with them. There are probably more, but if they were doing this, they would break this mitzvah up into, let's see, 1, 2. They'd break it up into 2 mitzvahs. They would separate. They are not to eat it with matzah. They are to eat it with matzah. They are to observe it in the 2nd month at dusk. They would break up. They are not to leave none of it until morning. They break that up, and then they break up not to break any of its bones. They have 3 mitzvahs in this, as opposed to the 1 that I'm giving you here, because it's all part of one narrative. 338. Numbers, Bamidbar chapter 9, verse 12, the prohibition to break the bone of the Pesach later. I missed that one. But anyhow, you're not to leave none of it until morning, and you're not to break its bones, observed in exile. 340, Numbers chapter, Bamidbar 9:13, the instructions for a person who fails to observe Pesach at its designated time. Now, you notice that there's an asterisk up there. So anytime you see an asterisk in any of these mitzvot, that means that this mitzvot is not on any of the lists that the Ashkenazis have put out to describe the 613 mitzvahs. But I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think that's a mitzvah? The person who is unclean and not on a trip who fails to observe Pesach will be cut off from his people because he did not bring the offering for Yahweh at its designated time. That person will bear the consequences of his sins. Do you think that's a mitzvah? Not on any of their lists. None of them. You see, we can't treat the fathers of mitzvah like we're going to a smorgasbord. Well, we'll bypass that one, and we're not going to do that. We're going to do this one. If he said something, we're obligated to do it. We don't get a chance to pass. Well, I'm not. Let's just pass that one up. Observed where? In the land. 9:14, the obligation for the foreigner to observe Pesach. But the person who is clean and not on a trip who fails to observe prayer will be cut off from his people because he did. I missed something there. That's the same one as before. I missed something there, but I have to go back and fix that. But the foreigner who lives with you, who lives with us, also is obligated to honor Pesach. That's wrong. I missed the verse there. 342, Bamidbar chapter 10, verse 7, the obligation to sound the trumpets for the community to assemble. However, when the community is to be assembled, you are to sound, but not sound an alarm. It will be the sons of Aharon and the Kohanim who are to sound the trumpets. This will be a permanent regulation for you through all your generations. This is observed in the exile. I had a lady that came here one time with us, and she said, right back there on the third row back there, and we blew the shofar to start service. And she said to me, "You're not supposed to blow the shofar to bring service. You're supposed to blow silver trumpets." Okay. There are two. There's the shofar and the silver trumpets to be blown. The silver trumpets get blown to warn Israel, which we'll see in a minute. When Israel's getting ready to go to war, they blew the silver trumpets. This will be observed in exile. Not observed in exile. This will be observed no, we do it here. I'm sorry. We do it in exile. It's not silver trumpets, so we use the shofar. 333, but Bamidbar 10:9, the obligation to sound and blow the trumpet when going to war. When you go to war in your land against an adversary who is oppressing you, you are to sound an alarm with the trumpets. Then you will be remembered before Yahweh, your Eloheka, and you will be saved from your enemies. So now, do you realize that your enemies are individuals who put their pants on the same way you do, one leg at a time? It's not all that other stuff. The devil No, the devil didn't make you do anything. Your evil inclination in your mind, the thoughts in your mind, caused you to do what you did. Okay? So there you have that one. Numbers chapter 10:10, the obligation to blow the trumpets on days of rejoicing. Also, your days rejoicing at your designated times, and on Rosh Kadesh you are to sound the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over your sacrifices of your peace offerings. These will be your reminder before Elohim. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. We do this in the land. We don't use the trumpet though, because we don't have any. We use the shofar. Maybe Josh should go buy a silver trumpet, huh? So I can be in compliance. What you think? What you think? Sister L, you think I should go? Sister L's going, if the Most High said silver trumpets, then we need to go get some silver trumpets. 345, the obligation to observe the one Torah. Bamidbar chapter 15, verse 15, for this community, listen what he's saying, for this community, there will be the same law for you as for the foreigner living with you. So John is a foreigner. He's from the nations. He's living with us. Therefore, this is a permanent regulation through all your generations. The foreigner is to be treated the same way before Yahweh as yourselves. The same Torah and standard of judgment will apply to both you and the foreigner living with you. So John is a foreigner living with us and his family, and they walk in the same instructions that we walk in. And guess what we don't do? We don't treat him like he's a foreigner. We treat the family like they're part of what? Family, because that's what they are. And we observe this in this exile. I'm sorry that there's a group of people I call the purple and gold, which are the radical Hebrews. They just want to put havoc upon the nations. And they want to stand out in the street and they want to pontificate and preach and talk about, you're going to be my slave. The Most High didn't say that. He said, you're not to treat them that way. You're to treat them as though they were one like you. Remember, you were once a slave in Mitzrayim. Don't forget where you came from. And you know what? The interesting part of this narrative that I'm talking about now, the purple and gold, they must have forgot that their granddaddy, their grandma, and their great-grandfather were slaves in this country. And guess what they are? Still slaves. Numbers 15:7, the obligation to separate bread. Yahweh said to Moshe, speak to the people of Israel and tell them, when you enter the land where I am bringing you and eat bread produced in the land, you are to set aside a portion as a gift for Yahweh. Set aside from your first dough a cake as a gift. Set it aside as you would set aside a portion of the grain from threshing floor. For your first dough you will give Yahweh a portion as a gift through all your generations. This will be observed in the land. Numbers 15:27, the obligation for a person who sins unintentionally. Do you sin unintentionally? If we say we have no sin, and the truth is not in us. We are human and we were born into sin. So sin is always prevalent and around us. So if we unintentionally break one of the Torah mitzvahs, he is to offer a female goat in its first year as a sin offering. The Kohanim will make atonement before Yahweh for the people who makes a mistake by sinning inadvertently. He will make atonement for him and he will be forgiven, no matter whether he is a citizen of Israel or a foreigner living with him. You are to have one law for whoever it is that does something wrong by mistake. This will be observed in the land. 15:30, the obligation to cut off a person who does something wrong intentionally. Okay? This one's not on their list. Let's see if it's a mitzvah. But an individual who does something wrong intentionally, whether a citizen or foreigner, is blaspheming Yahweh. Now you know what blaspheming is. What's the definition of blaspheming? one who does something wrong intentionally against the Most High. God damn it is not blaspheming. That's not his name. Not his name. That could be any God. Could be Krishna, could be Buddha, could be Hare Krishna, could be however many gods there are in the world. But this one here, when we do something wrong intentionally against him, we blaspheme him. That person will be cut off from his people because he has had contempt for the word of Yahweh and has disobeyed his command. That person will be cut off. What's the sex, Cheryl? Completely. His offense will remain with him. That means he will never, ever be revocated from the dust. He gone. Observed in the land. That's, see, when you read a commandment like this right here, when you read a mitzvah like this, can you appreciate grace and mercy? Huh? Can you appreciate grace and mercy? See, if I was preaching today and if I was able to get the organ to get the B flat and take me there, I would be shouting about grace and mercy, because without grace and mercy and this mitzvah, I'd be dead. I wouldn't exist. Mitzvah number 349, Bemidbar 1537. The obligation to wear tzitzits. Now, let's read the mitzvot, and then I'm going to speak on it. Yahweh said to Moshe, "Speak to the people of Israel, instructing them to make through all their generations tzitzits." Where? On the corners of their garments. These are not corners. You understand? These are not corners. We're wearing tzitzits, but they're not on the corners. It is to be a tzitzit for you to look at and thereby remember all Yahweh's mitzvot and obey them, so that you won't go around wherever your own heart and eyes lead you to prostitute yourselves, but it will help you remember and obey my mitzvot and be holy for your Eloheka. So the question is, so why do we have these on, our pants that are not the four corners? Because we're trying to walk in something that is the intent of the law. It's not the law. This is not the law. It's the intent of the law. But when I have these on and I stand up here and I teach you Torah principles, it helps me remember not to get my head in the way and do things and say things that are outside the parameters of the Most High's teaching. I'm not here to give you my thoughts and my ideas. I'm here to tell you what the scriptures say and how they apply and how we're to walk in. I'm not here to give you my opinion. If I give you my opinion, it's about something outside of this. But this will be observed in the land. So now, that kind of tells us what kind of garments we're going to be wearing in the land, doesn't it? Somebody say, "I don't want to dress like that." Yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Because if you don't, it might not be well for you. 350. But remember 18 and for the prohibition for a non-Kohanim to perform temple service. They will work together with you. People, the Levium will work together with you in your duties related to the tent of meeting. Whatever the service in the tent may be, but an unauthorized person is not to come near you. So when in the land, the Levium and the Kohanim are taking care of the services within the temple, there's a sign need to be put up. Unauthorized persons do not enter. $351. Numbers 18 and 5. Not to leave the temple unguarded. Verse 5. And he's speaking to the Kohanim and the Levium. You are not to take charge. You will take charge of all the holy things and the altar, so that there will no longer be anger against the people of Israel. So you have to safeguard it so that people don't get in some place where they're not supposed to be. Hey, Obed-Edom, was it Obed-Edom? Who was it? Was the name Obed-Edom? Was with King David bringing the ark back? And he didn't mean no harm. Wasn't his fault, really. It was David's fault, because David wasn't bringing the ark back the way it was supposed to be brought back. Had it on a little buggy, bringing it back, and the buggy started tipping over, and Obed-Edom was just trying to protect it. He died. He touched that thing, and gone. Touching the holy things. Only the Kohanim can do that. And the Levites were supposed to bring that ark back on their shoulders, carrying it, observed in the land. 352, the obligation to set aside contributions for the Kohanim. Yahweh said to Aharon, I myself have put you in charge of the contributions given to me. Everything consecrated by the people of Israel I have given and set aside for you and your sons. This is a perpetual law. Now let's talk about this one for a minute. This particular, it's interesting. This one here is interesting. You know why it's interesting? You know why it's interesting? It's interesting because pastors who teach that the law has been done away with, they function by this mitzvah. They say to you that all the contributions and the tithes that come into the house are for me and my family. That's the reason why they roll around in bling and pomp and circumstance and got big houses and fine cars, because they're taking your contributions and your tithes that the Most High has given to the Kohanim and the Levium. They've taken it for themselves because they say, well, that's a permanent regulation. Well, it's interesting. You follow this one, but you don't follow none of the rest of them. And I'm here to tell you, stop doing my stuff. You can't collect tithes and offerings. That's under the law. Stop it. Stop it. You hypocrite. You told me that I was legalist for following these, but you're just a bunch of legalists because you're doing it and you're not even practicing it, even coming close to anything that's Torah, that the Most High has already said in one of his, in Psalm, that you're wicked. Question. Who said it? Observed in the land. Numbers, the Midbar 18:11, obligation for the Kohen to receive wave offerings. Also yours is the contribution the people of Israel give to you in the form of wave offerings. I have given these to you, your sons and your daughters, with you. This is a permanent regulation. This will be observed in the land. 354, the obligation in Numbers 18:14 for the Kohen to receive everything consecrated unconditionally. Everything in Israel which has been consecrated unconditionally is yours. So those things that the Most High has unconditionally said to Israel that belongs to him, he says, I'm giving those to the Kohanim and to the Levium. Why? Because you don't have any inheritance in the land. I'm not giving you any land. I'm not giving you anything. You're my inheritance. Well, I'm Yahweh's inheritance, and I'm supposed to wait. You can't go there. You can't. Let's listen to the prophet who said, why halt ye between two opinions? Why are you dancing over here and dancing over here? If Yah be Yah, serve him. If Baal be Baal, then serve him. Why do you keep crossing the line? Oh, because it's convenient. Oh, why do a lot of unemployed people start churches? A lot of unemployed people start churches. They find a reason to start a church and get mad at the pastor. I'm going to start a church. Well, that's because they get tithes and offerings and the members come, and the first thing you want is to fleece the flock. Got to pay my rent. Got to pay my mortgage. I got to be all blinged up. Thank you kindly. There's one pastor, which I shall remain nameless, who has a very large congregation, fleeced the flock of people. The tithe weren't enough that he was taking. So he asked the congregation to please give him a contribution so he could buy his wife a fur coat. Hello. Really? Swiss cheese over there. A lot of holes. Oh, and by the way, we're going to have a fundraiser because I need an airplane. To go where? Well, all my fellow peers that I run with, they all have an airplane. Really, dude? Let's keep it moving. Numbers 18:50, the obligation to redeem a human firstborn. Everything that comes first out of the womb of all living things which they offer to Yahweh, whether human or animal, will be yours. Talking to the Kohanim. However, the firstborn of human beings you must redeem, and the firstborn of an unclean beast you are to redeem. This is one of the first things that your Kohanim Appleton did when his firstborn son, Yanamir, was born. The first thing that he did was he brought me the shekels for redeeming his son. He did that. See, you can't teach this and not do it. Those who teach must first be a partaker of that which they're teaching. I can't stand up and teach you all this stuff, Pastor, living a double life. Then you could call me a hypocrite. But you can't call me a hypocrite if I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do that I know to do. You're just mad at me. Oh my goodness. Yes, one day I'll get over it. Mitzvah 356, prohibition to redeem the firstborn of a kosher animal. The firstborn of an ox, sheep, goat, you are not to redeem. They are holy. You are to splash the blood against the altar and make their fat go up in smoke as an offering made by fire, as a fragrant aroma to Yahweh, observed in the land. 357, this is not on anybody's list. Obligation for the Kohen to receive the holy things.
All the contributions of the holy things which the people of Israel offer to Yahweh, I have given to you, your sons and your daughters with you. This is a perpetual law, an eternal covenant of salt between Yahweh for you and your descendants with you. This will be observed in the land. It's kind of like the other one. 358, Bamidbar 18:20-21, the obligation for the Kohanim to receive the tithe. This is all about what's happening for the Kohanim, not on anybody's list. To the descendants of Levi, I have given the entire tenth of the produce collected in Israel. It is your inheritance in payment for the service they render in the tent of meeting. Now, let's explain this one a little bit. So you pastors out there are collecting tithe based on this mitzvah. What might be the problem? There's a problem. What might it be? What constitutes the Levites? The firstborn son in your family is considered belonging to the Most High and is a Levite unless he is redeemed to do something else. So if you're not the firstborn in your family, you're not even considered a Levite. You ain't got no business crossing my street collecting the tithes from the people. That's the law. Isn't it interesting that we can live by laws of the land, but the Most High's laws just get in the way? I ain't doing that. Okay. Tell you what, it's observed in exile, and in the land, you'll be poof. 359, but Midbar 18:23, the Levites must work in the temple. Only the Levium, firstborn, that the Most High has designated that are his, are to perform the service in the tent of meeting, and they will be responsible for whatever they do wrong. This is to be a permanent regulation through all your generations. Let me spiritualize this one for you. I know we don't do a lot of that now, but let me spiritualize this one for you. If we go back to Shemot, forget what chapter it is, 19, I think it is. He says, if you pay careful attention and observe all these mitzvahs and commandments that I'm giving to you, you shall be unto me a Kohanim, a king. No, you shall be a kingdom of Kohanim, a holy nation. So the Most High says, by keeping his commandments, you and I individually, you are a Kohanim. Okay? This house, this building that your soul lives in is a temple. So since you are the Kohanim and the Levium and the priest of your own house, anything that goes on and wrong in your house, in your life, is not my fault, it's yours. Because you are responsible for adhering to the regulations and the rules that the Most High has given us. So that's just a spiritualization on that. We don't do that very often, but we gotta deal with the house. 360. Midbar 18:24. The obligation for the Kohanim to receive the first fruits of the year tithe. So the first fruits are dealing with in Israel's terminology, if we had a harvest, if we had a ranch, we had a farm, and so forth, and we were raising things, then the first fruits that came up from the ground that were there, that would belong to the Most High. That's what he's talking about. They are to have no inheritance among the people of Israel, because I've given them to the Levi as their inheritance, the tenths of the produce, which the people of Israel set aside as a gift for Yahweh. This is why I have said to them, they are to have no inheritance among the people of Israel. Now, I want you to realize something, okay? If we're dealing with this principle here in the land, you got to look at how large Israel is. And you got to look at the service that the Levium do, and they don't have any inheritance. So they don't They don't have the right to go out and have a farm and make income. So the Most High says, you are my inheritance and I'm going to provide all of this for you. So they're taken care of. So this is where the Christian church gets, well, you all are supposed to take care of me. Y'all are supposed to take care of me. Hey. Come on now. Y'all are supposed to take care of me. You're doing a good job, and I want you to applaud yourself. You're doing a good job taking care of the things that are necessary for the Most High's people to have a place to function, come and be a part of. I ain't got no right taking what you give to me, putting it in my pocket, living fat, and we in some storefront, shaggy place, looking like po folks. Does this look nice? Does this look nice? Does this look respectable? It's not a cathedral, but the Most High, hey, it's not a cathedral, but the tabernacle wasn't a cathedral, but boy, it was bam, bam. It was bam. Hey, Sean, the tabernacle was bam. How many $1 million was the Mishkan and all that? That one room, how many was it? $60 million for one room. And it was overlaid with badger skin. So it wasn't bam. But when you walked inside it, and you looked inside and you looked up and you saw all the threads of gold and all the threads of blue and all the threads of silver and all the bam that was in that place, it was on point. So this one here, I'm almost done. 361, Bamidbar 18:20, the obligation for the Levim to tithe. Yahweh said to Moshe, tell the Levim, when you take from the people of Israel the 10th of the produce which I've given you for them as your inheritance, you are to set aside from it a gift for Yahweh, 1/10 of the 10th. So if I was getting all of this from you all, then I would have to set aside the 10th of the 10th that you gave me, as the Most High has said. Since I don't get it, let's put it this way. Since I don't take it, you understand what I'm saying? I don't take it. But this will be observed in the land. Bamidbar 362, Numbers chapter 19, verse 2. Carry out the procedure of the red heifer. Yahweh said to Moshe and Aaron, this is the regulation from Torah which the Yahweh has commanded. Tell the people of Israel to bring you a young red female cow without fault or without defect, which has never borne a yoke. That's the law of the red heifer. You have to read that particular section to see what all of that's about. The obligation to purify oneself after touching a corpse. So now the waters of purification that are the product of the red heifer is here. It's what this is talking about. Anyone who touches a corpse, no matter whose dead body it is, will be unclean for 7 days. He must purify himself, and with these ashes on the third day and the 7 days, then he will be clean. 19, 14 through 16, the obligation regarding a corpse. This is not on anybody's list. This is the law. When a person dies in a tent, everyone who enters the tent and everything in the tent will be unclean for 7 days. Every open container without a cover closely attached is unclean. Also, whoever is in an open field and touches a corpse, whether someone killed by a weapon or someone who died naturally, or the bone of a person or a grave, he will be unclean for 7 days. Let me tell you something. The Most High does not have any use for that which is dead. And he tells us that you got to cleanse yourself. How do you cleanse yourself? By washing in the waters of purification. Obligation for the unclean person to add ashes to the fresh water. For the unclean person, They are to take some of the ashes of the animal burned up as a purification for the sin and add them to the fresh water in a container. Talking about the waters of purification from the red heifer. This will be observed in the land. 366, Numbers 19, 18, and 19. The obligation for a clean person to sprinkle waters of purification. A clean person is to take a bunch of hyssop leaves, dip it in the water, sprinkle it on the tent, on all the containers, on the people who were there, and on the person who touched the bone of the person killed, or the one who would also die naturally by the grave. This mitzvah isn't on anybody's list, but it's a mitzvah. The clean person will sprinkle the unclean person on the third day, the seventh day, and on the seventh day he will purify him. Then he will wash his clothes and himself in water, and he will be clean at the evening. All these things are going to are going to be taken as process. Where? In the land. When we get in the land. Can't do it here. We don't have coining. 367, Midbar 19, 20-21. A person who remains unclean is to be cut off from the community. A person who remains unclean and does not purify himself will be cut off from the community because he has defiled the sanctuary of Yahweh. The water for purification has not been sprinkled on him, and he is unclean. I'm not going to let you sprinkle that stuff on me. Okay. Okie dokie. Most High's getting down to that 1/3. You just got X'd out, observed in the land. This one's not on the list. The obligation for a person who sprinkles the water to wash his clothes, Bar 19 and 20. This is to be a permanent regulation. So if it's a permanent regulation, how come it's not a mitzvah on their list? You see what I'm saying? The person who sprinkles the water for purification is to wash his clothes. Whoever touches the water of purification will be unclean until evening, observed in the land. 369, the obligation, Bar 1922, the obligation for an unclean person, or remain unclean until evening. Anything the unclean person touches will be unclean, and anyone who touches him will be unclean until evening. And that's it. That's all of them for today. Most of these that I've given you today are in the book of Numbers by Midbar. That's our conclusion of today's presentations of the mitzvahs. They are very important. As I close today, remember that on the 16th of this month is the Day of Atonement. The Most High is very, very, very picky about his Day of Atonement. You can miss a whole lot of things, but if we were in the land this particular day, you wouldn't want to miss, because you would be cut off from Israel, never to see the light of day again. And, kind of with that being said, you might say, well, and I ask this question. Across the street, they talk about going to hell and fire and brimstone. Do you really think that the Creator of all things finds pleasure in your suffering eternally in brimstone in a place called hell? Do you think he gets pleasure out of that? When he said in Ezekiel, I find no pleasure in the destruction of the wicked. So where does that narrative come from? Who told you that? Well, my son keeps telling me, Dad, you need to read Dante's Inferno, because a whole lot of that's in Dante's Inferno. But a whole lot of that stuff across the street comes out of Greek mythology and Greek thought. It's not the Most High. So you say, well, if I'm not going to suffer, if I'm not going to suffer, then okay, I can just live my life any old kind of way. This is true, you can. But that's not our goal. Our goal is to have what? Eternal life. And live with the Father. And have joy and peace. And have all the things that he's promised Israel when he joins Israel back together. That's our goal. You can do anything you want to do. But if you're going to church because you don't want to go to hell, let me say something to you. You might want to consider honoring the mitzvahs. Because if you honor the mitzvahs, this is what you're going to do. You'll miss hell and you go to the land and have a chance at eternal life, even though you kind of screwed up in your theology. See what I'm saying? Anyway, we have a podcast. Our podcast now is on multiple platforms. It's on Podbean. It's on iPod, Apple. It's on Twitter. Is it on Facebook yet? It's on Facebook. It's on a multiplicity of platforms, so you can get our podcast anywhere that you go. It's called Hebrews in Exile. And we try to share some knowledge with you that will help you to be able to gain the experience of eternal life. Well, I say to you, shalom. Let's bless the house of Israel as we get ready to close today. Yevarekaka, Yahweh v'ishmareka, Ya'er panai v'leka v'kanuka, Yasa Yahweh panai v'leka v'yisam laka shalom. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face to shine on and show you his favor. May Yahweh lift up his face toward you and give you peace. Until next time, shalom.